on Twitter, I know you as JB, and what happened is your post like really resonated, and I was like, man, this guy kind of knows his stuff. And you did a like a free tarot reading, and I got
Yeah.
that, and it was accurate, like scary accurate, and it was interesting. I keep adding a T. Am I saying that right? I keep wanting to say, like, I was dumb. I think I said,
Oh, yeah.
hey man, a tarot reading. Like, I added the T in. Like,
Man, I've heard so many different versions, and I think it's just kind of in the
ah,
lexicon where,
yeah. I'm in the Bible
uh,
Belt, dude. Like the southern.
right, right.
Uh,
And most people are reading it. You don't hear too many people talking about it, I guess, unless you go on YouTube or something. But
yeah.
it's the tarot is the way we're supposed to
Tarot.
pronounce it. Yeah,
Tarot.
tarot. Yeah,
Tarot.
yeah,
Did I get it right or not?
tarot. Yeah,
Tarot. Okay.
tarot.
All right. Yeah, yeah. First lesson. Well, you did that reading, and I thought it was interesting. So I was part of like fundamentalist Christianity. I'd been around. They do a version called like prophetic words, and it's a lot of like just hyper positivity, which is great when you need a lot of
Yeah.
encouragement. But that reading was so interesting because it was like, hey, like this is your strength, and like this is what is currently hindering you. And I love that part because it like nailed all the stuff that I was going
Awesome.
through with my therapist. And so that's when I was like, whoa. So that attracted me to, and then I got your deck, and it's incredible,
Thank you.
because you laid out the symbolism.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell like people who you are if you can, but you've been involved for a long time, right?
Yeah. Kind of behind the scenes as much as possible because I wanted to. I felt like it was my mission to, help get some of these symbols a little bit clearer. Um, I noticed with the internet blooming as it was at the time when I started this, there was a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of charlatans, getting these people to run around and buy all their products and, you know, feed them useless junk, really. And then you had the book market that was just basically regurgitating the same stuff and everyone's personal style. Um, so, uh, doing so much research on the tarot, on occultism, on hermetics, and symbolism, I felt I had a decent enough read to help people get it, at least help them get it a little bit better, and realize it's nothing really to be scared of. It's a part of our lives. We've called it different things. Some people in the past called it magic. Modern day people would probably call it psychic abilities, or energy work. It's all that same stuff. And I thought, everyone putting up their own little tent stakes and their flag and saying, all right, magic is this, and another group over here, no, 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 you guys have it all wrong. Magic is this. Like there's a few defining characteristics and qualities to magic, and occultism, art symbolism, and I thought, okay, well, let me get out there and try to help people explain this a little bit better so we could advance this art, get past the old ignorance, and try to move forward in a more clear and scientific manner.
You know, that's really needed. I love symbols. I just love them. Like I love the Midnight Gospel, dude. That show was
Oh yeah,
hard to get through because
love
you
that show.
you watch these sections and it's like, what?
Yeah.
And I would have to pause it and just ponder these symbols. But they're
Oh yeah,
hard to learn. Dude, my
yeah.
friend got like one of Aleister Crowley's books, and it's like this dry ass fucking dictionary with hieroglyphs and all this stuff. But so it's like I appreciate that knowledge has been kept safe, but also like we want the right people getting it, and that's what I love about that tarot tarot deck of yours.
At the road deck, yeah.
Yeah, like hang on, I'll cut out this
Yeah.
little like pause, but let me do this because now I mean, there was two things that I loved about them. This is a card I pulled. Actually, maybe you can comment on this. This is in my journal. But I asked the divine, like, you know, I was just wanting a statement for like this current time period, and like if I go back, just give me 1 second. I want to show these cards because, man, I think, and if I can't find it, it's cool. Oh, there's a good one. That's the card. Man, I wish I could show you that one. I haven't figured out how to, but these things are fascinating. Anyways, all right, so I'll just go with it.
Out of the world.
Okay, so like I was just asking, like, what's a good card for this current like transition period we're in, and bam, this card came up, man. Like,
yeah, that's very Kali Yuga, or into the Kali Yuga sort of card there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the viewers know, like, man, if I can get that in focus. There's these words, and there's tons of them. Some of them are hard to see, and it's kind of cryptic. Yeah. They blend into the art well, like really well, and they're going to define these symbols. So what I've been doing is meditations on the words inside of it, and it's been awesome. Amazing. And then for the age to come, I got this card, Divine Feminine Dude. I was like, right on.
That one's actually Divine Androgyny.
Yeah, I know nothing about these. So what does this card mean? Like, you know, I was kind of like wanting to know about, you know, like the future of humanity and consciousness and all that. So what does this mean?
Yeah. So if you notice real quick, we were talking about the cosmic egg just a second ago. Look at the egg shape around.
Ooh.
That's the cosmic egg, right? Okay. You have the elements in the corners. Right, so it's essentially the painting that I was showing you with the cosmic egg, just with more symbols and actual definable forms. You know, so in the red you have the electric fluid wand, which is like the masculine energy, and that's sort of a key throughout the deck. Is the colors, like you see the red, that means masculine. You see blue, that means the feminine. You see the green, it's sort of life and growth. You know, the purple is all about space, akasha, spirit. So it kind of gives you those color codings throughout. Once you learn that, you get the next layer of symbolism, you know?
Well, I liked this Kali Yuga thing. I got looking into it, and yeah, like I had a pretty interesting experience, you know. It seemed to be like really centered on my spine, like down in the base, and dude, a lot of wild stuff has been happening like across the board. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what is going on, man? Like, it's crazy.
Depends what modality you want to speak about it in. So, you know, we have the Kali Yuga version, like we're at the end of the Kali Yuga and we're going into a new age, right? Then you have a lot of big transits in astrology that have come up, where the collective is changing, and the collective unconscious is changing, and there's more energy sort of being pumped into the soul world, if you will, for a lot of big changes that are coming up. We've had a lot of interesting solar flare activity, right? That's getting energy levels up all around the planet. You know, storms, and you know, you got the auroras going. If you kind of watch the trends on Twitter, you'll notice like people having trouble sleeping, you know, or waking up too early.
Can I please ask you about that? Like, I've been so I have 4 kids, and I'm, you know, still in the HVAC grind. And so, in order to do this podcast, like last weekend, I went on 3 hours of sleep the whole weekend. And
I'm on 4 today. Yeah.
Dude, and like, it's possible. Like, I'm realizing, okay, so Bashar said something that really caught my attention once. and he was talking about sleep, and he was like, well, ultimately sleep is for spiritual refreshment. So if you can find a way to get it, so, like through something else, say a deep meditation,
Mm-hmm.
it's like okay. Now, granted, it's difficult. Like I feel like I am struggling a bit, but it's possible and it's fun,
Mm-hmm.
man. Like the energy is fun, dude. These
Oh
podcasts
yeah,
have been wild. I've been meeting some cool people.
awesome.
Yeah. So,
It seems like more people are starting to connect too. That's the other big thing. With
mm,
the internet,
mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of connections and a lot of course, junk that has come from that. But with those connections that people have made through the internet, people can compare notes and talk shop, with
Mm,
energy work and astrology, and where before those were tiny little islands, that
right.
maybe didn't have enough peer review, and now we're on Twitter and you got every astrologer, posting a prediction like, oh, something with this is going to happen. So people can watch and look and go, oh, okay, well, something close to that. Or like the tarot readings, it's, oh, I got this card and something like this happened. So enough of that starts to get seen and people go, well, yeah, maybe there is something, to all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. So, my introduction into this was kind of surprising. Like, do you know Damien Eccles?
Yeah. Yeah. I really like, he wrote a book a while back on angelic magic.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
and if you look real close, he talks about that space of awareness as well. The front, the back, the left, the right, the up and
yeah,
down.
yeah,
Um,
he's
and that
brilliant.
shows up in a lot of systems.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, he's brilliant, like literally brilliant.
Yeah, I've seen he's
But
gotten into energy work lately. He was doing a qigong thing the other day. It's like, all right, you got another one on the
yeah,
train.
yeah, like it's amazing. So his wife, Lori, is my mentor. Like she's been coaching me, and
That is awesome.
yeah, it is because like I was getting introduced to this stuff, like Neville Goddard, but it took me a
Mm,
while to like really get it. But man, it's wild, really
yeah.
wild. So, is that your definition of magic, or how would you define magic?
Um, it's one of those tricky little things because you can look at something and be like, well, everything's magic, so that means there's no real like the Tao, like, yeah, the
Mm,
Tao you can name is not the eternal Tao.
mm,
For me, I've always used this formula, right? You have will, which incorporates energy. Okay, so that's energy work, intent, focus, concentration. All that goes into will in my equation. And then you have imagination,
mm,
right? So you get these two forces, the electric and the magnetic, the positive, the negative. You always have to have these two sort of mating forces to
mm.
create something,
Okay.
right? Um, so when you take the will and the imagination, you infuse the life force that's inherent in the energy and will into the imagination, and you set it off on its little way, right? It starts to work on the imaginal, what we some people call the astral, in the mental realms, the higher realms, and that influence brings about a result. So, um, to me, you can pretty much work any system into that, and you'll see it somewhere. Like, okay, I got all my ritual tools. I've infused these ritual tools with a willed intention and force, right? To have a battery of that force. I've built up imaginations and thoughts about these tools and what they're capable of. Take on an imaginary role of a divine being to work this ritual or connect through the imagination to these beings, right? And fuse them with my will in order to work my will on the universe. Um,
Whoa.
you know,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's pause there because that's a lot. That's a whole
I,
lot.
I can
And
I can ramble real quick.
no,
Just I've
no,
been
no,
doing it
no,
for
no. Like in a good
slow me
way.
down when needed. Slow me down when needed.
In a good way because I had no idea how powerful the imagination was until I started playing around with it. And so when
Hmm.
you're saying these things, I'm like, yeah, that's real stuff because I've gotten experience with kind of like the introductory, and it was neat, I was looking into Crowley's like "Do What Thou Wilt" and how that was really based on love, and I was like, you know,
And there's some layers to there. It's not just
yeah.
a,
Now
you know,
Crowley is
pass through
complicated.
word. Yeah,
Crowley is
I'm
freaking
not a fan.
complicated.
I'm not a
Uh,
fan of
Me
Crowley. I
neither.
mean,
Me neither.
I love it. I love his book four. I think that's about as close as he ever got to like clearly writing it out and explaining it in
Yeah,
a good
I'm
way.
taking like Mark Passio's view, which I was recently introduced to, that he was like a great
Mm.
magician. So he understood spiritual stuff, but he didn't really use it in a good.
Yeah,
it'd be
he's
like
not a good
some
person.
exactly. It would be like some televangelist, like understands Christianity, but is like really not doing good stuff with that spiritual power, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so that's the
And
way it
that's
is.
actually an interesting and common trend if you go through.
Why?
Uh,
Why is that?
there's a book by Jeffrey Kripal called Secret Body, and that really goes into depth with it, like case studies and hypotheses on the reason. But it's pretty clear. Again, you have the life force energy, right? That male energy, and it wants to work.
It wants to like it's all sexual metaphors, right? I remember
Right,
reading this Rosicrucian book, this old ass book, and it was like every action in the universe is a sex action. Like you,
right,
even with electrons, it's positive to negative. So when
right.
you're saying the life, you're meaning like this is a male energy of like pursuit and maybe power in like a sea breaking out of the ground. Is
Right.
that
And I I hate using the gendered language. There's been a long talk in hermetics about that gendered language, and because you can see in other cultures where the male and female roles are flipped, right?
but see,
Um,
that begs the question of what's gender, because we're not saying like
right.
what we're saying is that a biological female can definitely have masculine energy. These are just
Right.
categories of
Right.
energy. That's the way I view
That,
it.
and that's where we try to head towards. Like it's based off these qualities. You look around. So someone experiences something, right? And then we're trying to describe it to somebody else, right? And that's when the confusion comes in. That's when the finger starts pointing at the moon and everybody gets lost.
Hmm.
Like, what do you mean by that? It's like you got to have the experience. Once you get it, you'll get it. Like,
Right,
and that's
and
always been the problem of that realm. Until someone gets it, they can't get it.
you
Because
can't
they're going to
get it.
be hooked up on these concepts rather than the direct experience of it.
Yeah,
But
like
once you get the direct experience, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. This is what they're talking about.
yeah, exactly, and like this awakening that I feel like I had because it was wild. But at the same time, you like kind of wonder if you're crazy too because it's such a weird experience. Like I remember being at work and just seeing a butterfly cross a field for the first time. Like seeing it for the first time where it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
wow. I don't know, life. It was weird. Like there was an energy in it. And then I started like working on cultivating that, like getting that from a tree and like getting that from children and I've been doing a lot of inner work and stuff and I'm like, oh, like heaven is right there. Like
yeah.
if you
It's
can lock
within.
in, but it's hard to lock in, man.
And that's the process. Like when you really break down magical initiations and magical development, they'll follow a similar trend and direction, and it's always um, build up your imagination and will skills enough to uh, fully be able to imagine and imbue a divine form in the imagination with that life force, right? Um, and realize you're the one who did it. You just made a divine being, but it's also empty. Like to realize that power is within you. But it's everything is like that. So it kind of, you get that crazy feeling where you can lose your mind. Like, wait
Crazy
a minute,
feeling.
I'm the one that just manifested this divine form.
Boy.
Am I a god? Am I not? And you have to let that go, and that's the full
God.
enlightenment, to find
Yeah.
the emptiness, to realize it's all just divine arising and passing. Like,
Can I?
you just didn't become special. You just woke up fully and realized, oh, it's all God. Okay, I got it. And just go live your life at that point.
Dude, like that.
Chop wood, carry water.
Man, that's hitting hard. Like that resonates with me so hard. Like hard, because I used to think there was a pot of gold at the top of this mountain, right? Called career, called, all these different things. And I realized it wasn't there at all. Like it's right there out there in front of me. Just, could be an interaction with a homeless dude. But, man. Yeah, there is this enlightenment, I think, where Kyle, this guy on the podcast, he calls it just going all the way. Like you just kind of realize you're tired of pain. Like going back.
You want to leave the hell realms. Nobody wants to stay in the hell realms.
Yes, the hell realms, And so, honestly, I've been kind of afraid, like, because I've had a lot of trauma, dude, and, I think the trauma itself is traumatic, and, like, I've been afraid of those fucking realms. But I had this weird thing happen that I wanted your opinion on.
Yeah.
I was at this game and I did a meditation where I just disappeared. Like it just seemed like I was gone, and just deep down in. And because I was raised in fundamentalism, I was taught that like God is here and you are here. So in my subconscious, I've been very afraid to claim divinity, even though a lot of New Age people do that. That's hard for me to do.
Yeah.
But in this meditation,
I mean, Christ himself, know ye not, you are the sons and daughters of God.
I know.
You know,
I know, it's
if
all right
you're a
there.
son of or daughter of someone, that makes you,
I know.
of the same type
It's
and
all
kind.
there, but I couldn't receive it, but
Yeah.
somehow like I did. And I realized, so I've been imagining that I'm Christ because I'm like, why not? Like if the imagination works, so that's been a pathway for me. I imagine that I'm Christ, and
That is a fantastic path.
I feel that energy, and like
Right.
I try to work with it, and because to me he was a pattern that I have such deep respect for. And then he was crucified. Like I think that's wild. Have you ever been fundamentalist or like Christian at all, or?
So my father was a Seventh-day Adventist pastor.
Interesting.
Yeah. He never pushed that religion, right?
Is that Jehovah's Witness?
It's they're kissing cousins. It's pretty darn close. What happened? It was somewhere up in New York, I think in late 1800s, early 1900s. They had the classic "Oh, the world's going to end," prophecy going around. So this church, these particular religious group all kind of got together, awaited the end, didn't come, and they sort of fractured into a bunch of different groups. If I remember right, like Jehovah's Witness and Seventh-day Adventists are a branch that kind of came off of that. But they're very strict. Like if they don't mention eating something in the Bible, you don't eat it. There was no watching of TV or radio. Wedding rings.
Same.
Because that's a pagan tradition.
Yeah, I was Mennonite.
Okay. So yeah, it's sort of that level of strictness. Now, luckily, it was only like the first 3 years of my life that he was a pastor of that. He got out of the church because he thought they had God in a box, and he thought God was much bigger than the little box that they had made for. Um, so, while he continues to be a Christian, he doesn't have a formal sort of structured religion. It's more he reads the Bible, meditates, prays, that kind of thing.
That's
And
powerful.
my mother was Catholic, so I got the Protestant and Catholicism, on either side there. So I'm pretty well versed. Growing up in that household, for a little while, I was thinking about becoming a Christian pastor.
Hmm.
Even did some of the studies. I've read the Bible a couple of times. Um, but while I still believe in Christ as a force of consciousness, just like, the Buddha or anything else, it's like the highest level of human consciousness that you
Mm-hmm.
can be, something you should attain, strive for and
Mm-hmm.
try to be like,
Mm-hmm.
I put them all in the class of solar beings, like Superman fits in that class of solar
Mm.
beings. I'm a big Superman fan, so he's in there. Uh, but just that I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to sacrifice of myself, for all beings as much as I can. And I'm going to keep going until somebody freaking puts me in the ground and stops me, and even that, I'm going to make that an act of love as well. Like how
Wow.
much can you give? To me, that's a pinnacle of humanity right there.
And I've been thinking about how Jesus was looking at that widow that dropped the 2 mites into the offering, and he was
Mm-hmm.
like, she gave more than all of the Pharisees. So I've just been thinking, like maybe smiling at a waitress is
It's doing
like,
good. Yeah.
yeah, like that's where it's at. Because honestly, that's a good life. I've just been trying to live a good life in a way that is building people up, and it's been real satisfying at a deep level. And
Yeah.
that true will is powerful stuff, and that's where it gets cool
Yeah.
because
When
it,
when you get in alignment with the universe, man, you have the universe at your back. It's making
yeah,
you flow right along with the way things should be.
yeah.
100%.
Um, so once you get in that flow, like what's next?
So it depends. There's a skill branch there. Like, what are we going for? For me, I had started at a point where I had some uh, psychically traumatic experiences in my youth that sort of made me go, at a very young age, what the hell's going on, right? I didn't have much of a choice. It wasn't like a passing interest or curiosity that got me in it. It was like grabbing me by the, collar and dragging me into it.
So
Um,
you had, say, open visions as a child, and
yeah,
are there
I
any
was
of those that you would like to share?
um, on a couple of podcasts, that me and my buddy had done. I had gone over some of them, but I'll select the most traumatic one for me.
Okay.
And you know, that one, and it fits into a bigger theme. So that's why I like to use that one. It was. Are you familiar with the, like, during Halloween time? They'll get those cardboard skeletons, like green skeletons, and you can move and adjust their,
Yes. Yep.
body
Mm-hmm.
here and there. So imagine that, a glow in the dark one. Okay. Um, I had this experience for several nights in a row of my dad coming in and hanging up one of those cardboard skeletons on the back of my door. And then while I'm in bed, pointing out the bones, like, okay, this is the skull, this is the jaw, and like naming the bones. So I was like, okay, weird, but my dad's kind of a brainy guy, so within the realm of weird possibility,
Right.
always just thought it was strange. Never came up again. Um, a few years later, well, many years later, I was in my 20s by that point. It just popped in my head to think of it's like, Dad, what was up with that, bone lesson? with the skeleton on the back of the door. And he's like, the hell are you talking about, son? He had no idea of it, right? And I was
Mm-hmm.
about 7 at the time. It happened. So it's not too much in the realm of pure imagination. Like, when you're a kid, you'd be like, oh yeah, I saw a dinosaur. And,
Right.
okay, kid. Yeah, whatever. You know, uh, and it was very real. It wasn't dreamlike. There was other experiences that, I've
Did
got that I was like, was that a dream? Was it not? But
did
this
you
one was
say that one
very,
was traumatic though?
so there was something dark and kind of creepy about it, right?
Yeah, so it was like
I
you
went,
encountered a spirit in a dream, basically.
right,
Okay.
right. And I had sleep paralysis around that time
Oh
and throughout my
shit.
life as well.
That's scary as
So
fuck. That's
that's kind
real
of the
scary.
running trend of that, right? Like I could see that as a sleep paralysis thing. My kid brain just locks it in
Oh
and comes
god.
up with that sort of narrative,
'Cause you were
right?
7. Holy shit. So
Yeah.
did that get you afraid of meditation and stuff? Like what was the effect of that?
Um, Early on, I had a lot of trouble, and every now and then, I still have some issues with astral projection, just because it's sort of the same state that you got to hit, the body asleep, mind awake state, so you can pop on out.
Can I talk
Um,
to you about that? Cuz like I had
yeah.
this experience where, you know, I like it is weird. It's a weird duality. Like I had this experience. I hallucinated that I was in hell for like an eternity, and it was weird. Now, to be fair and like just clear, it was because I didn't understand the dosage on these Delta 8 gummies, and I took like a fuck ton of them on accident. But the experience was real and scary, and
hmm hmm
but what was interesting about this one is I was afraid to die because I didn't feel like I was where I wanted to be. So it was like an NDE. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that experience, that spiritual experience you had with the skeleton, like what was the long term effects of that?
I think and I was trying to mold it into that direction, to that point. It's So I'm adopted. Okay, that's gonna be a key part in the story. I didn't know that till I was a little bit older.
Mm.
Um, so at some point, we're having this conversation with my dad, talking things over, and finally comes out that, hey, I've had sleep paralysis most of my life, and he's like, oh, that's really weird. Me and my brothers always had that.
Whoa.
So it's not a genetic thing, right? Is that a sort of spiritual force that's following those people around? And because I entered that household, I'm now under that sway, because on both sides of the family, they had a lot of, like, they had a healer. Um, and my, adoptive grandmother was very psychic, like saw spirits all the time, you know. So that was kind of, it fit into a piece of, um, I think, being around psychic people and other people,
Mm.
if they start to awakens others. But you can also have the flip side of that coin. Like if someone's got some bad mojo on them, like that's poisoning the waters as well. So good psychic hygiene is very important, you know. But that made me wonder, because my father, he went to the seminary, he studied the Bible. Was that traumatic experience that spiritual force? And you had mentioned the trauma as well that you had in your life. There's a lot of research showing that people who go through trauma open up their psychic abilities.
Whoa.
Um, especially with UFO abduction cases, whatever they are. We don't have to get into all that,
Well,
but
can I ask you
yeah,
about that, please? Um,
yeah, yeah.
so I am aware of Chris Bledsoe. That was my first introduction into it, and then
Okay.
just to make a decently long story short, I had this experience where I looked up on the hill and I saw this burning ball of fire, man. And I mean, it
Mm.
was like beautiful, like a portal of this golden light. So I'm staring at this thing hard because It's noon. Like
as one would. You know?
yeah, I'm like, whoa. You know, my brain is freaking out. I'm like, this can't be happening. Like, I know these orbs exist because I've had other weird things happen, but not anything crazy like this, man. And so I'm looking at it, and the light, like, molds into like a pupil shape, and then, well, that's not in frame, like a pupil shape, okay? And then it was like a black magic marker drew the eye of Horus, like clear as day with the squiggly and all that,
Mhm.
in my frame, where the light then became kind of like the pupil.
Okay. Okay.
So what is that, dude? Like, this,
Um,
I've been
yeah,
digging into it, but that's interesting stuff, man. like
yeah.
like this,
There's
I am
if we do go
fascinated.
into
I
the
am so
yeah.
fascinated. I could talk about it for fucking ever because it I had another one that was mind blowing too, and it's like it seems connected, dude, and it seems like more
Mhm.
and more of this stuff is happening. Like it's accelerating. So what does that mean, man? Are we talking about contact, dude?
Um, if you're really interested in that line of thinking, check out Diana
Yeah.
Pawlowski is her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, familiar with her, and Jacques Vallée.
Yes.
Uh, those two, I think, have, in my opinion, on the way I look at it, probably the best grasp of what's going on.
Okay, well
Um,
here's if I can interject, my
mhm.
my problem my problem with some of it is that it to me it was 100% spiritual, and like
Mhm.
I get
Mhm.
how it can enter the physical realm because it seems like the Bible hinted at that, like Jesus ate fish even though he could walk through walls. So there's this overlap. But I don't take the narrative that they're very physical. Like it to me they're angels.
Yeah.
And that's
Uh,
where I differ. Is that
I would be careful in classing them angels, right?
okay? Yes, please elaborate. This is what I want.
So, and I am not claiming any special knowledge here, right? This is me knowing the spiritual and astral worlds the way I do, from what I've experienced, from seeing what I've seen, and a lot of reading and like piecing things together, right? Like I've never sat down. I don't want to make it sound like I sat down with a light being. It's like, hey, what's up, bro? Like tell me your secrets. So not claiming any like this is not the divine truth, right?
Right.
Best guess,
It's your very educated opinion. Something what
right?
Paul would say every now and then. Educated
Right.
opinion.
There's probably several levels and beings, right? Um, I think we have some beings that live amongst us that are made of plasma beings, right? And notice that we're starting to see a lot more of these when the sun's starting to go nuts with all the solar activity. In
Are
other
these
words, there's,
orbs? These are the orbs because they're
yeah,
plasma beings. Okay.
orbs, plasma beings, things like that.
Mm.
Uh, and they were showing up a lot more, if you really look at some of the reports, in Brazil, in South America. Um, there's a hole right there, an electromagnetic ditch, basically, where a lot more solar energy has been pouring into that area.
Whoa.
And they're starting to see more plasma beings all of a sudden. Like
Can I
doesn't take
ask
much to
you?
start putting that together.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, yeah.
Vincent Tolman gave this what Christians would call a prophecy that there would be this thing with the sun, like a lunar occurrence that would release a lot of energy on the earth and almost like give gifts to people. And this confuses me because, the sun burns the shit out of me. Like, I love it, but like, man, you know, it would be so much nicer if it was not trying to cook me.
Hmm.
But, like, I mean, I enjoy it. So what's the deal there? Like,
Right. So we have the physical sun, then we have the astral sun, right? The imaginal
oh,
sun, and then we have the
oh,
spiritual or mental sun. So,
okay.
and throughout history, the sun has always stood in the place of the divine, right? And what happens if you look upon the face of the divine for too long? You're going to get burnt. You can't look and stare directly at the sun. It'll burn your eyes out. You know, it's supposed to be this powerful, life-giving yet destructive force. See, it has that polarity again. Gives life, but it can also take it. That's the power of the sun. So in alchemy, it's the work of the sun that's doing all this. It's sending the energy into the vessel, which is the earth, and it's doing a slow alchemical process through millennia on the planet Earth. It's the prima materia. So you have
Whoa.
the microscopic scale of the work, which is happening in each of us, and then you have the planetary scale
It's all
of
the
alchemy.
symbol. Oh man. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal, dude. Because I have been thinking a lot about that. It's like even though this world has been harsh, it's like this steady amount of energy has been trickling in since the dawn
It's
of
been turning
time.
up the heat, right?
Yeah, in like a good way. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel so thankful, to be part of, I think, a time period where it's really available. Like, dude, I
Yeah.
mean, we're sitting here video
We
chatting right
we
now.
we are blessed apparently with some fantastic karma, from what they say, to be
Man,
born at this very end of the Kali Yuga. When it gets real, apparently we get some massive street cred for being here. So yay us.
well, it was painful as fuck, like fucking painful. Now I know that there's worse trauma. Like
Mhm.
I was friends with one of the last surviving D-Day vets, and dude,
Oh wow.
I don't even know if I can tell his. I have told his story, but like, it's hard to tell
Yeah,
because
that's some real pain right there. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I had only seen Saving Private Ryan, and when he talked about it, I realized it was way worse, like
Hmm.
way worse. And so, there's that, but then at the same time, it's like there is this weird, because I've been thinking darkness, darkness is a type of light in that it reveals light. Right,
Hmm.
so if you can look at the anti-pattern and understand something about the pattern, that's still the pattern. It's just that you're
Right. It's
so
the left hand and the right hand of God,
yeah.
essentially.
That's been hard.
Severity and mercy.
That's been hard to
And
wrap my mind around
right.
because you're taught in Christianity that God is only good, and it's like there's not really good and evil. That's a
Yeah,
tricky
I
one.
really wish, if Christianity wants to evolve in a positive light, they really need to do a sort of savior of Satan sort of thing, like,
Mm,
and bring him back at least as the accuser, the way Judaism had it. Like,
yeah,
he works for God. He's God's prosecuting attorney. Like, he and
yeah.
God are buds.
This is a question I've been afraid to ask. And I think I've typed it up on Twitter, but it's like, okay, so if humans had to fall in order for Christ to come, and when Christ came, there was a redemption that could only happen if they fell. Was Satan really evil or just the pathway?
Right.
Yeah.
There's some parts of, or some Gnostic traditions that say the serpent was actually Christ in the garden,
Whoa. Oh.
coming
Whew.
to save us actually from kind of like this childhood smothering cradle. Like,
Well, he said he
the
was a
young.
stumbling stone,
Yeah,
right?
it's there's a lot of, you can kind of dig in with some gematria and different traditions, and you can make a case for, like, the fact that it's all God doing this, right? God put on a bunch of different masks to make this happen.
Because our
uh
Christ was the Jews' antichrist. So it really
mhm.
is kind of like this perspective thing. And whew, man, dude, man, that's a hard. it took my worldview being obliterated, like fucking nuked, in the most painful way possible, I think, to regurgitate this idea that, and it's hard to articulate, but that evil. I got it through the story of Joseph, because when he looked at his brothers, he said, "Everything that you intended for evil, God worked for good." So the question then is it evil or is it good? Like, if it was worked for good and like he's reigning, like, did he regret it? He didn't regret it. So
Right.
that gets kind of trippy, right?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you're too familiar
Oh,
with it.
yes,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
dude, please.
Um, I really like Tolkien's, and it's still kind of within that Catholic view because he was a devout Catholic. The Silmarillion, breaking down the story of creation, and then of course the ages and the eventual end to that song, right? That the Valar originally sung, and the true God divided up creation and made these lesser gods, and then, all right, guys, we're going to get into this song. We're all going to sing this song, and the main bad guy, Melkor, um, keeps trying to mess up the song. He wants to do his own thing. He wants to make his own song. He wants to be able to create on his own, which eventually causes the fall. It's very, Catholic sort of story, or Christian sort of story. The really cool part is that the one divine being, the true divine being, is like, you don't realize I've created this song way before you ever existed. I knew what you were going to do, and it's part of the song, right? Like, I wanted this to be this way, even though you're
Mm.
rebelling. You're rebelling in the direction that I want you to go.
Oh man, yeah. Water always goes downhill. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's gonna happen. Hey, so
Yeah,
in the Lord of the Rings,
it's to make something even better in my mind. It's the the jeweler chipping away and making a beautiful diamond, right?
yeah. Mm.
The parts that we thought we liked that are, those are our parts. Darn it! Why are you chipping away my structure of
Oh,
reality there, my
yeah,
belief
and
system?
like, man, it's such a gift, because you see children just do all of this naturally, and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can
To
lock
be its
in,
children.
man, like be
Yeah.
in a field and just be in the now, like, with nothing. And granted, they have pretty easy lives, but also it's like this journey of starting as a child, like learning a bunch of good and evil that fucks you up, and then returning to being a child with all that knowledge. So you get you get the joy of life with the satisfaction of, like, the understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rich
Yeah.
evolution. But I gotta ask you, in the Lord of the Rings, who is Gandalf?
So he'd basically be an angel, right?
Okay.
So Saruman, Gandalf, even Sauron, were all of a class of angels that came to Middle Earth for varying reasons. But
Are we
uh,
angels? Like, what are we exactly? Like, we don't have memory of. I mean, I don't. I've heard of past life regressions, but it's like, man, even if you're getting snippets, like, how are you getting the real thing if you're an eternal being? Like, there'd be a lot there to dig up.
there is a lot there to dig up for sure. To me, that's a pretty complex and deep sort of conversation. Just because there's so many levels you can take it, and then you have variations based on people's practices and belief systems.
Hmm.
I I think that humans have sort of created, through our magic from being consciousness, right, in these bodies, we've learned a trick of the imaginal, how to work with the imaginal, how to work magic. I think that's the fire that Prometheus gave us, right? That intelligence to be able to,
Mm.
like, transform our world with this energy that he gave us from the gods. So I think at that point, we started manifesting afterlives and these reincarnation cycles. I think that's all for us, made by us. That's my take. and you can kind of plug and play what sort of afterlife or system you're going to take part in as this developing soul. I think at any point you could go, oh, wait, you know, this having a soul or being a soul is also an illusion. I'm actually divine awareness, pure divine awareness. And I'm just having a good time in this soul suit, having a good time picking up bodies, you know, like in transforming from a, you know, a germ to a giraffe to a human to a god or an angel. It's just containers for divine awareness to be in, and it just plays certain roles for a little while.
And it's just like
So
a cycle, right? That just
right,
like
and we
keeps
play out that cycle
on
until we
over
run that
and
energy,
over.
you know, or decide, okay, I'm ready to go back into being just pure divine awareness for a while.
Yeah,
But
dude,
yeah,
okay, life is getting great, but if I could, hang out with some beings that are like projecting the Eye of Horus on my eyeballs, I would really enjoy that for like a long time.
yeah.
So
Let's get back to that one.
can I
That's a
get
good one.
off
To
the
get back to that.
fucking gerbil wheel, man, of going
Right.
around and around?
So with, let's say that is a plasma being that came to you, projected the Eye of Horus, or that you saw, right?
Yeah.
Is that an angel? What's an angel? You know,
What's an angel?
could it? Right. What's an angel? Could that have just been a powerful electromagnetic force, and because it's part of the universe and part of God, right? It's an energy that has a structure. You interacted with it, with your mind, your consciousness, and it, in its own way, you know, the only way it could make sense to you is to give you something, the Eye of Horus, which is, by
I
the way, a
was
fantastic symbol for the sun and consciousness.
so I
You
was
know,
talking to
I'm.
myself in a way
We
through.
always are. We always are.
Oh, bro. So, like, I manifested what I was ready to see, um,
Hmm.
and it manifested back to me, kind of like Neo, like poking his finger in that mirror, and there's like two sides. So you're
Right.
manipulating.
And that's every interaction. Me and you talking right now. I'm basically talking to a
I
projection of what I think you are based on, you know, the symbols coming into my eyes, my ears. I form a
know.
picture in my brain. This is the type of person. These are the words I need to, you know, speak to be able to communicate properly with them. You know, all that's a projection in our head. I
And
don't really know you. I'm not really seeing you. I'm seeing a screen with your image on it.
yeah,
You could
but
be an AI for all I know.
I
But
know it gets
it,
trippy, like with the sinks and the people. It
mm-hmm.
gets to be where, what the fuck? Like, is this some kind of like weird game? Because it starts to kind of break down in a way of like almost like a joke. Like, sinks can be so bizarre that it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like when is the curtain just going to be pulled back?
And and on a higher level, you know, there is that divine joke, right? This is all just for us to experience and grow and
Yeah,
love and have
until we
fun.
die. So
That's
we just love it to the nth degree until our last breath. Yeah. I'll never
yeah,
forget I was in college and, I was like crazy over my wife and I wanted to marry her and I talked to my economics professor and I was like, man, I'm just in such a hurry. I just want to like graduate and be married. And he looked at me. It was just so simple, but like it was highlighted, like fucking etched in my subconscious. He was like, son, why are you in a hurry?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long life
Yep, you're saying
sometimes,
the
but
same
you know,
thing. Yeah, yeah. I hear you. That's good.
yeah, just enjoy it. I mean, when it comes
Mm,
down to it, you've reached the highest peak of magical initiation, right?
mm, mm-hmm.
What you gonna do with it? Right? Like,
Love. I mean, because
right,
loving
right. Like,
is
say you just got your PhD in some
fun.
college, you know, education. What you gonna do? Go enjoy life. Like,
That's what I've
it's
been
all
doing,
about
dude.
living and enjoying this
Like,
moment, being here.
yeah. Let me show you something. Past this green screen. Hey, I got
Oh, there
like
you go.
this hoarder, like, so, dude. All these pictures right here are new.
Oh, nice.
But this is all my family, and this was all
That's
after this
beautiful.
awakening experience. Like, here's my son. That's just one example. Like, look at his little. He's lifting a weight. Is that
Oh
in
yeah,
focus?
that's the one you had sent me earlier with his face like that. Like
No, he
you
just
kind of
has
had
so
oh
many of them. He's got
okay, he just
hundreds
has
of
that
them. Yeah.
like weightlifter like
Yeah,
face.
but so
Awesome.
like I'm starting to lock in and experience life, and I'm realizing like, gosh, that's what it's all about, man. Like you could be driving down the road and see a road sign and have like a nice, meaningful taste. I guess Jesus called it bread or whatever.
Hmm.
And just thinking about, oh,
Hey, a little off there.
yeah, I
A little
know.
bit. Oh, and now on the other side. All right, you got it. You got it. Perfect.
Yeah. You didn't realize there was so much junk back there, did you?
That's the thing with the internet. You never know, what's
Yeah.
behind the curtain.
Yeah, this green screen is great. Okay, here we go. Ah. Um,
There you go.
but yes, I think, you know, it's been a lot of changes that just make sense. Like I thought it was all going to be something grand, like the fucking walking on water, and it's really just like it's so simple. Like just having a great interaction with the person taking your order instead of, you know, just thinking a bunch of shit. Because I'm realizing like
Yeah.
my having to clean my thoughts up. Woo, man, dude, I felt like I needed, you know, 4 or 5 mops and buckets, and like I was just bailing bad thoughts out of my brain. It's just a lot of that, and but it's weird how it's like only that, such an illusion. So
Yeah. I
how?
mean, technically, those aren't your thoughts, even. Those are
Okay,
programs that the flesh brain or the mind or whatever is just built up, right? And they're just going off based on karmas.
okay,
Um, I, I mean, think about it. Can you stop your thoughts right now? Do it.
no,
Yeah.
never. They just
Okay.
never
So
stop.
that means you don't have control over your thoughts, right? They're not you. You like that. It's
God,
not
okay,
actually you.
okay.
Like
So so
you can control all this other stuff, right? Can't you? I mean, at some point you won't be able to. It'll drop, but at this moment, you're able to control certain things.
oh oh yeah.
But thoughts, just like sense phenomenon, it's not like you're saying, okay, I want to see right now, or I want to stop seeing. Even if you close your eyes, you're still seeing the back of your eyelids, or
Right.
I want to stop hearing. It's just taking in more information. And once you figure that part out, psychic abilities start making a lot more sense
So
because
thoughts.
you're
So
not reading thoughts, you're just picking up the frequencies of thoughts on certain levels.
okay. Well, let me ask you this: are thoughts like this internal ecosystem that you're not really like? Okay, so when I walk down the creek and I see a bunch of trash in the creek that I didn't put there, like
Mhm.
maybe someone else just dumped it in my creek. Um, it's like yeah, there's a tendency to take that on as an identity, but what you're saying is thoughts are kind of just like the ecosystem. It'd just be like a tree that's got
Yeah.
some issues, and it's not something that you would ever judge as yourself. It's just kind of your environment. So are you changing your environment, and that's manifesting differences?
Right. So that's like the practice of meta or, well wishing others. You're starting to change your frequency that you're broadcasting and picking up on, right? So think of the chakras, the different levels of the chakras throughout the body. You can easily build a conceptual model of the type of person and thoughts that person would have based on where they're at consciousness wise on the level of the chakras. So then you can start thinking to yourself, is this a base chakra thought? Is this a crown chakra thought? Is this like what frequency am I at right now based on the level of my thinking?
Okay, well, it
And,
seems high because it like there's this obsession with love, and weird things are happening, dude. Like weird things. Uh,
mm-hmm.
um, you know, so for example, um, I I just grabbed. It was just like pure instinct. I don't even know why I did it. Just grabbed this huge handful of paper towels and shoved them in my bag, and I took the kids to the park. I had like 35 of them, like nice shop rags. super clean out of a brand new box, had never been in the van. So I'm just like waltzing around, and I see this girl, and she looks kind of odd. Like something's not right. I look closer, and blood is just like spewing out of her face because she went down a slide and cut her glasses, and I happened to be right
Mm.
there with all those paper towels and like none of the. I mean, no one there. Everyone there was freaking out. Well, it just so happens that like I had just had like a training at work, and so I know what to do, and like she was losing it. Like it was traumatic, and it really, really helped. Her mom was nowhere to be found. Like she was like 500 yards away, and
Poor
like I ended
baby.
up carrying her to the car. But it's just all this stuff happened in a way that was really flowing, and that was pretty rare. It's not like that happens a lot, but I started to realize that
Or that you didn't notice that it's happening. It's going on all the time. Every
that's
moment is that
right.
continuous flow of the prior moment, right? Didn't
Mm.
have everything to set up this new moment, then,
Hmm.
how could it be out of flow if it's flowing moment to moment, right? This is what's meant
Ah,
to be right now as
so
well. Even
like,
the
hmm.
stuff that doesn't feel like it's meant to be, that's meant to be too.
Oh man, I know. I'm realizing that's the surrender bit that I feel afraid
It's
of,
tough.
and like,
It's a tough thing to let
yeah,
go, but in a positive way, because
I
you can
gotta fix
easily fall
something.
into a nihilistic view. Um, I'll give you my favorite example. And uh, I had this vision of the future once, right? I was working on my psychic vision, trying to
Hang on a,
refine it and
hang
develop
on a
it.
second. I gotta
Oh
fix
yeah.
this. The reason is because when my chair gets like off base,
Oh,
y-
no.
well, I like I write these notes on a. I kind of write key points on this iPad, and so
Okay.
yeah, you'll see in the video, but when my chair gets off base, it's like I can't. And I'm left-handed anyway, so it's real
Oh,
goofy.
okay. Got you. Got you.
Okay, so where were we? I
Oh
apologize.
yeah. Just to give you an example of being in the flow and how things are fated, uh, but not to be nihilistic about it, right?
Okay.
Um, so I was working with my psychic vision at one point. This was years back, and I had a spontaneous vision that popped up, and it was just the most mundane thing of picking up some groceries that I just took, but it was these particular groceries. Like I was going in the bathroom, I was putting like it was Epsom salt and some sort of cleaner up in a top cabinet, right? And then I realized I really needed to use the restroom. So I went and used the restroom in the vision. Like that's how a useless vision this was. I'm like, okay, it was clear as day. Like seeing
Wow. Wow.
this, I saw it perfectly, but I was outside of it. Like it was projected right in front of me. Okay.
Wow.
Um, about a week or so later, I'm coming in. I'm got the groceries in my hand. I'm walking to the bathroom, about to pay, and like the second I move to put the Epsom salt into the top cabinet, it clicks on me like this is the vision. This stupid vision was showing me like even down to this level, it has that flow. It's part of that universal flow and part of it,
Ooh.
right? So
Yeah,
at that
man.
moment, I had to
Wow.
make a decision. Do I
That's
follow it, or how much free will do I have? Because I now realize I really need to use the bathroom. So I'm kind of stuck in this position like, yeah, I could do a bunch of different things, but like I really need to like put this down and then go use the bathroom. So
yeah.
anything else seems ridiculous. It seems dumb, you know?
That's part of what
So,
makes you go crazy. It
right. So I ended up just bringing the Epsom salt with me back to where the toilet was so I could use the bathroom just to be like, ha, I changed the universe, the universal plan. I used free will.
wow.
So that's how I look at like fate, free will, and the flow. Like
So that
there's
you're some kind of
there's
dancer.
yeah, like you're dealt these cards. You can shuffle those three or four cards however you want. Like, oh, I'm going to do this right now, and then I'm going to do this later, or I'm going to try to do both of these at the same time. But there's these things that are on your plate in this life, and they got to hit, right? So whatever weave gets you between those 2 points, that's what's got to happen. Or however many points in between, whatever you're supposed to be doing here,
So
your will.
what does that mean? Like, um, are these points like these eureka moments where like something clicks and
It's
you
right.
pass
It's
through a
things that
door?
we sort of wanted to incarnate on this life to learn. So let's say in your past life, for whatever reason, you said, okay, well, these are the things I need to learn or I want to experience even. It doesn't all have to be higher educational. Like, oh, maybe I want to go paragliding. Like I never did that in any of my past lives. Like, or
Hmm.
maybe I want to go in a rocket. I always wanted to ride on a rocket. Like that could be part of it too. It's not just
Wow.
like, okay, you have to learn calculus. Like, oh, frick, okay, calculus.
I like that.
It's it's these experiences that we desire, that we need, like there's this yearning to experience. And that's what's drawing us, through these lives. That's why you pay attention to where that energy's moving, because that's kind of giving you that directional signal of, oh, we're getting warmer, like oh, there
Yeah.
it is. That's the path,
So
versus,
Damien,
go ahead.
can I get you to interpret something to me that Damien says? Like
Okay,
I
maybe
I don't
so. Yeah, I can give you my view.
I don't get much out of Damien, just only Lori. I don't even really know Damien that much. I mean, he's amazing and like does a lot of teachings, but I don't think he does any like real mentorship type things. But
Mhm.
anyways, he says that it's attachment, I think, that brings us back. And
Mhm.
so like I love the experiences I'm having right now, but I don't
Mhm.
want to be attached. I don't. To be honest, like the pain, like I want to be done with the pain, man. Like I'm I see where and the story of Christ is so brutal, you
Mhm.
know. I asked Kyle about it, the guy, I just episode 3 and maybe 1 or 2. And he said that, well, if it's already done, like, does it really need to be done again? Is that the thing? Like, why is that so, dude? I don't. Let me think about what I'm trying to say, but it's like, all right, that is the ultimate pattern, and I respect it so much, but I don't want to do that shit. Like,
Mhm.
I really don't desire the. I desire the crucifixion in the sense of laying down the false will and taking up the true will.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something brutal. It only seems brutal to the self that you think you are right now, right? This ego, right? That's another part of that Christ practice that we're talking about, where you imagine the divine being and eventually you draw them into yourself. Because right now you've built up an antichrist, the ego, in your headspace,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good name.
And
Yeah.
the last thing it wants to do is submit to the divine Christ,
Mhm.
because that means, oh, well, I enjoy these things, man. I don't want to submit and lose all this, rather rule in hell than serve in heaven.
Well,
That's that force.
hmm, okay.
So by sort of taking on those qualities, that's the crucifixion. It's saying, I'm not going to be selfish. I'm going to give of myself.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and you
Yeah.
start out small if you have to. Give of you like you were doing,
Mm.
family, friends, life. Some people give up their whole lives. They become nuns and monks and clergy people, and
But as
they're
long as I'm giving life and like it's
right.
coming from, yeah, that sounds great. Like, because Jesus did say, I was thinking about like my yoke is easy and my burden light or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
man, he seemed really fucking happy.
You're right.
Like
Right.
he was always partying and
Yeah.
he
He was a Dionysian figure. He was
yeah.
about the
Hmm.
experience of joy in life and beauty in life and growth in life.
Hmm.
Um, but it's part of that story of Christ. Whether like I believe there is that force. Now, was there a particular person that did all those exact things? I wasn't there. I can't tell you. Right.
Hmm.
I don't consider myself that much of a Christian to be able to argue like, no, there was a dude that actually walked on water and
Hmm.
came back from the dead. I think there was probably an inspirational figure that over
Mm,
time, myth and,
mm,
actual, he was probably an actual magician if he did anything, um, built up into a story of the sun, the divine son, right? He was a representative. He became a symbol for the sun's action. I mean, dude had 12 disciples, 12 signs of the zodiac, crucified on a cross, the
yeah,
four directions. Like, man, I believe in divine providence and setup.
that's
Like
wild. That's a wild setup. That's a
right, right.
slam fucking dunk, dude. Cause it released grace into the world, and man, like once that was done, it was game over. It was game over because all we needed was like all of this spiritual evolution, and just like that tipping point of
Yeah,
there's this father that has a son that it would do anything for, and the energy behind that is one of like really powerful union. I've been trying to tap into these different energies to pursue the divine, and it's been good, dude. The results have been good. There seems to be like response to that type of energy.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Whereas if I felt like if I was trying to manifest something like, say, a car, for example, I just don't feel the same energy behind that. But do people manifest cars? I
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard
See,
time with that because it's like, yeah, I don't really
I've seen
want my
some
gain to be
wild,
somebody's loss, right? Like,
right. I've seen some wild, wild things, and it's so fascinating on how it works by our programs in our brain. Like, like the Luke and Yoda thing. Like, oh, I can't. I don't believe it's true. I don't believe it's possible. It's like that's why you failed. Like,
Neo,
and
yeah,
yeah, he dropped some wisdom right there. Like, the system works, or the what I call the astral light. Right, it's the energy between the material and the awareness of the spiritual. Right, so you have that polarity. In between is that energy
okay,
that we work with as conscious human beings, and we can shape it and we can mold it. But the way we do that is based on our beliefs and our experiences up to that point. So let's say right now, lifting that car or lifting that X-wing, seems impossible to manifest. That's like going to the gym and saying I'm going to rack 500. I'm going to bench this.
oh, yeah,
Like start small first, build up the awareness and the ability of the consciousness to accept those results as something, yeah, that can happen. Like you'll at least want the
ah,
belief that, like, yeah, it could happen. Like, don't have the attachment of, oh, it's gotta happen,
yes, yes. I've been
like,
Yes. So I've been trying to manifest the fruits of the spirit.
mhm.
And I use a lot of Christian terminology because
Yeah, that's fine.
I was raised deep in that. Like I know it really well.
And I
But
always recommend people when they start magic or spiritual path, like the tradition you were raised in, there's power in that. Stick with it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Make it this part of your spiritual path. Yes, countless generations have used it for terrible things and have twisted messages on it, but you have the same resources. Get in there with your wisdom and intellect and spiritual drive, and bring it back to life for yourself.
Right on.
So yeah,
Like
sorry about that. Yeah, go
no, no.
ahead.
That's such an important point because I think a lot of people get tripped up there. So when you get out of these structures, it can be brutal. Like I
Yeah.
got out by being burnt at the fucking stake, like in a horrible way, man. I lost everything, you
Yeah.
know, and but and so there's this tendency to like hate it and throw it away and lose it and like, but when I finally started letting it back in, it was just so much more powerful. The Bible, dude, the Bible is a wild book. Some of
It,
these
it,
passages
you
have,
realize it wasn't allowed in the common folks' hands.
it
It's a
is a
book of magic. It's
magic,
a magic book.
thank you.
You know,
Yep.
priests were the only ones who had it. What were they? The court-appointed magicians, basically. You know, I mean, look at the Catholic Church and tell me those guys aren't wizards. Those are wizards.
Yeah,
They
the
got staffs and
outfits. Yeah,
everything.
for fuck's sake, man. That those pointy
That
fucking
hat.
helmets.
You
Yeah.
telling me that hat's not a wizard hat? Get out of here with that.
Yeah, interesting. So there's like these high level people that really know this stuff well, but they're into like control
Mhm.
and all
Yeah,
that.
but
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Like, if you were set in charge of this system, right, of all these human beings, potential gods that could rule peacefully with each other in a new Eden, right? Or you could keep this control system where they keep feeding you the power,
Ooh,
in your
gross.
elite seat by producing certain symbols and rituals at the right time to get people to focus on what you want. Then you don't have to do any of the hard work. You're just pumping the engine of consciousness energy into the program that you would
That's
like to see manifest.
that's fucking creepy. That's
Yeah,
creepy, but in a way, that's the perfect matrix because
yeah, we made it.
yeah,
This is how we're channeling our energy at this
but
time.
like
We've all
it's
decided
that
that this is the best way right
pain.
now
Yeah, that
until we
pain.
come up with a new system to like, oh, this is how we all need to work together to channel our beliefs to manifest a new world. That's the
Yeah.
new Eden.
It's organically losing power, just naturally.
Yeah, and that's what we're experiencing right now with this end of the Kali Yuga and whatever, astrology wise. It's the breaking down of that old system. We're starting to see the cracks. We're starting to see the models we've been given don't fit the reality anymore. It's clear. So, and going back to my work that I've been working on, of trying to put this information out, like that was kind of the idea. Like we need to start building this knowledge set, free from religious concepts and beliefs, because who knows what we're getting on the other side of this, right? We need like the basic facts of how our consciousness interacts with reality.
Mm-hmm.
So we can craft something new, a new art, a new belief, a new myth to live by. And I think it'll take a lot of those old myths and kind of bring them over, uh, you know, but they'll go through some transformations, and that's actually kind of what Crowley was talking about with his Book of the Law. Like we're entering this new age. These, from my vision, these are the new symbol beings that will be ruling the stage. Whereas before it was, the lunar virgin and the solar deity, and a child in between. You have that trinity. Now we're going to the great beast and, Horus, this powerful sun god and, the
What is
Whore
the
of Babylon.
beast?
Hmm?
What is the beast?
So in Crowley's work versus, say, what it could be in Christianity is a whole different thing. He thought it was a symbol form of like the lust card or the strength card. The one in my deck where it's holding up the lion. It's the power and strength to shape nature to our will. Like that, the beast is the force of nature, and we have to kind of get on that sucker and direct it and ride it. We have to pry its jaws open to get its power out and use it to good will, or to bad ends, depending who's working with the power at the time. Sadly.
Interesting. So what you're basically saying is that right now there's sorcery being done, whether people want to call it that or they want to call it psychological mind games.
It's the same thing,
Being
in my opinion. Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it is the exact same thing. So even if you're not familiar with the occult and you just want to look at it from a psychological perspective, like these high level people are playing some real games with our imaginations, which means they are playing with reality itself.
Correct.
Oof.
Not and perfect example of this, right? We'll go back to Tolkien.
Yes,
The
please.
Rings of Power series, right?
Yeah.
Not a big fan. Watched the first few episodes. I thought it was beautiful, but story wise, like I'm a purist, right? So it gets me frustrated. Um, you can look at that in a way as the spirit of the exploitive nature of capitalism, trying to invade the territory of Middle Earth that we've crafted in our imaginations, right? It's trying to get in. Sauron's return is coming back, and he's trying to reorder our imaginations and shape that world that we've built in our heads into something else, right? Do we let it? Do we watch that series and then allow that access and to build up into a new world as part of the Tolkien story? You know, the same thing happens with different religions. You know, you have these little sects that sort of form, and it's like, no, we want to take control of the narrative and shape it a different way, for good or ill, right? But you can look at those as individual spirits sort of influencing people in a certain direction to manifest what they're trying to do. So you can even look at it as a layered thing. So not only do you have sorcerers and magicians, but you have the spirits that are influencing those people on the chessboard in order to enact certain things.
So it's a whole hierarchy of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Forces and powers and principalities and principalities.
Dude. Okay, so like I gotta go because like I told my wife I wouldn't talk too long.
Yeah, that's fun.
But this has been absolutely incredible. We got to do it again. Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
Part two for sure.
Can I end by asking you, in the Lord of the Rings, what is the Ring of Power?
So, great thing in the Silmarillion, right? You have that dark force, that Melkor force, that is trying to oppose the good and shape its own will. Middle Earth, Earth itself, and this is where we get into some of that Catholic belief system there, is a world of sin. It's Melkor's ring that he forged. All of Middle Earth is a material plane that Melkor wanted to rule over. It's only later when the gods came down and like, okay, we're going to make this a good thing. We're going to try to bless it and, evolve it into a positive direction, right? So the first ring was Middle Earth. Then you have Sauron, Melkor's like lieutenant in the army against heaven. He's banished down there on Middle Earth. So he wants to craft a ring to control Middle Earth. So it's a secondary level of control and power, a weaker form of control and power. So that's what it was always about. It was the will to enforce a structure, order, and rules. It's that emperor force in the tarot. I'm going to divide everything up. I'm going to control it. I'm going to make sure everything's perfect and orderly and right.
Got you. I got it. Because it is the sword that just cannot be wielded by human hands.
Yeah, it's a power that anyone who gets it, it's going to corrupt it. Power corrupts.
Yeah. Because I realized that it has to corrupt because that's the power it is. The only power that can't corrupt would be like the power of love. It would be these powers that are
can't control love. You can't bind love.
And they're self-replicating. Like it's not a power that's a dragon swallowing its own tail. It's a power that's like literally self-replicating. But man, dude, editing takes forever, but like I love going through these and just like listening to it over and over because, dude, you gave me a lot to think about. This was great, and
appreciate it. It was great talking with you.
Can you send me links and stuff to put in the description? Yeah,
sure.
Like I want to make sure people can get your deck.
Yeah, I'll get you the tarot deck, the tarot deck.
Your X account.
However you want, the carrot deck.
I know. I'm gonna continue to butcher it.